Failure. It's a word that carries so much weight, doesn't it? When we hear it, we often associate it with shame, disappointment, and a sense of defeat. But I want to share with you my journey with failure, how it shaped me, and why I now see it as one of the most valuable experiences life can offer. I remember the first time I faced real failure. It wasn't just a small mistake or a minor setback. It was a colossal collapse of something I had poured my heart and soul into. I had started a business, full of hope and ambition, convinced that my ideas were solid and that success was just around the corner. But reality hit hard. My plans fell apart. My finances crumbled, and I was left standing in the wreckage of what I thought would be my dream come true. In the immediate aftermath, I was devastated. I questioned everything, my abilities, my decisions, and even my worth. How could I have failed so badly? It felt like the world was closing in on me, and the voices of doubt were deafening. You see, failure has a way of magnifying our insecurities, of making us believe that it defines us, but it doesn't. Not unless we let it. In those dark days, I had a choice to make. I could let this failure be the end of my journey, or I could use it as a stepping stone to something greater. It wasn't an easy decision. The easier path would have been to give up, to walk away, and never look back. But something inside me refused to let that happen. Deep down, I knew that this failure, as painful as it was, had something to teach me. So, I started to dissect my failure. I looked at every aspect of what went wrong. Not to dwell on the mistakes, but to learn from them. I realized that I had been overly optimistic in some areas, naive in others, and that I had made critical errors in judgment. But more importantly, I began to see that failure wasn't just about the external circumstances. It was about my mindset. You see, I had approached my venture with the belief that success was the only acceptable outcome. Failure wasn't an option, or so I thought, but in reality, failure is always an option. It's a possibility in everything we do. And when we embrace that possibility, when we acknowledge that failure is a part of the journey, we begin to free ourselves from the fear of it. That's when my perspective started to shift. I began to see failure not as a dead end, but as a detour, one that could lead me to a better path if I was willing to learn from it. I started to ask myself different questions. Instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" I asked, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "How could I be so foolish?" I asked, "How can I grow from this?" And that's when the real transformation began. I took what I learned from that failure and applied it to my next venture. I was more cautious, yes, but also more informed and more resilient. I knew what to look out for, what to avoid, and how to adapt when things didn't go as planned. But more than that, I carried with me the knowledge that failure wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be embraced. Because here's the thing, failure is inevitable. No matter how careful, how smart, or how prepared you are, there will always be times when things don't go as planned. You will make mistakes, you will face setbacks, and you will fail. But that's not what defines you. What defines you is how you respond to those failures. If you let failure break you, then it wins. But if you let failure teach you, if you let it build you, then you win. Every failure carries a lesson, and it's up to you to find it. Sometimes the lesson is about humility, about recognizing that you don't know everything. Sometimes it's about resilience, about learning to get back up after you've been knocked down. And sometimes it's about innovation, about finding new ways to solve old problems. Failure is a teacher, and it's one of the best teachers you'll ever have. It doesn't sugarcoat things, it doesn't let you off easy, and it doesn't care about your ego. It shows you exactly where you went wrong and gives you the opportunity to make it right. But only if you are willing to listen. I'm not saying it's easy. Facing failure head-on requires courage, humility, and a willingness to change. It requires you to confront your weaknesses and to acknowledge that you're not perfect. But that's the beauty of it. Failure strips away the illusions, the pride, and the excuses. It forces you to be honest with yourself, to see things as they really are, and to grow from that experience. Over the years, I've had my fair share of failures, more than I can count. But each one has made me stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Each failure has been a stepping stone, leading me to where I am today, and I wouldn't trade those experiences for anything.